Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our participants here at UP Open University headquarters, and of course to our participants online via UPOU networks. Um, since we are UP Open University and we offer our programs via distance education, request po natin, I know everybody here has a Facebook. Sino po dito ang walang Facebook? So walang nag-raise ng ay si Sir walang Facebook. Any social networking site, sir? Okay. So anyway, for those who have social networking sites, accounts, and those, I know, lahat po tayo, madami sa atin mahilig mag-pictures, right? So for those posting their pictures in your social media accounts, please use the hashtag UP Open University and also hashtag R&D Management. Okay po? And then, of course, please like our Facebook page. That's UP Open University. And another one is Faculty of Management and Development Studies. And you will see your pictures there po as soon as it's available. Okay, so welcome back to the second day of Colloquium on Innovations and Trend in R&D Management. For this morning, we are going to have two plenary sessions on ethical, legal, and policy concerns in R&D management and open and distance e-learning R&D management. And just like yesterday, we are going to have, or we will entertain all the questions during the open forum after all the speakers' discussion. For our first speaker, she is a retired professor of UP Marine. He is a retired professor of UP Marine Science Institute. He obtained his BS Chemistry cum laude from University of San Carlos, his MS Chemistry from University of the Philippines Diliman, and his postgraduate in Marine Pollution Chemistry with distinction from University of Liverpool, and his PhD in Biological Chemistry from Griffith University in Brisbane, Australia. Before his retirement, he was a member in many local and foreign professional organizations, including Asia Pacific Society of Marine Biotechnology, Asia Pacific Society of Applied Psychology or Phycology, and American Chemical Society. His research interests include marine natural products, algal polysaccharides, seaweed and seagrass utilization, and marine chemistry pollution, chemistry including toxicity assays. He started to be involved in seaweed chemistry research in 1977 under the mentorship of Cahipe and E. Lacerna, an activity that resulted in numerous research projects and published papers both for local and international circulation. His papers on seagrass seeds germination test for heavy metals led him to a marine toxicity consultancy for Shell petroleum exploration. Since 2014, he has lectured on research ethics during NAST-sponsored research upgrading and performance evaluation workshops. A recipient of numerous awards and citations such as UP Scientist 2, the PRC Outstanding Professional Chemist in 2012, and 2013 Pantas Awardee because of his seaweed utilization research. He is an academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology Philippines, the highest scientific advisory body in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Marco Nemesio E. Montaño.
Thank you. Okay. Um, After giving lectures for around on ethics for three what different places, I got this email with this. And actually, it's also found on Facebook. Okay. So Actually, what we're talking about is something serious when you're doing research. Um, Especially last time when I was in Cebu, they said na, ano daw, I talked about preaching daw. But anyway, we have to deal with it. We have to face ethics when we do research. Okay, okay. Research ethics, and this is my outline, basically. And we go for the paradigm of science. First, we have something, we formulate a hypothesis, we observe and formulate a hypothesis, and then test hypothesis. We revise hypothesis, that's what fits to our observations. Then we get the results, we communicate to other scientists. And then if it's okay with other scientists, the other scientists either would agree, then we communicate with the public. Um, Ito yung area sa communications, I think is the area na medyo tagilid ang science kasi um, yung especially and from the scientist review to the communication with the public is very difficult. There are very few science writers who could understand what we're doing. Okay. Now, during the time of Newton, the work is kept in secret. In fact, Newton's work was discovered only after he died. Kasi they kept the secret, just like alchemy. There was an alchemy tradition in which they kept the results and procedures to themselves because they were looking for what? For example, sa alchemy, they were looking for a substance that would change everything to gold. But this time, iba na yung sa modern times, no? It was the time of Henry Goldenberg, the Secretary of the Royal Society of London, who powered it na ipabigay yung manuscripts, ipa-referee, and then it would guarantee, after referee process, they would guarantee the rapid publications to the Royal Society for Philosophical Transactions. I don't know. In Diliman, I know we only had one member of the Royal Society. That was the national scientist, Lara Lim Siliangco. I don't know here in UPLB. Ethics. Ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and what is right to do. That's one definition. Now, in general, uh, we ponder, give appropriate credit, respect people, animals, plants, and the environment. We remain objective, and we spend money appropriately. We cannot say put in the proposal as a field trip to MOA for shopping. That's not allowed. These are the laws usually. I think the next speaker will elaborate on this, basically on the respect for the other intellectual property. Most of the problems now in ethical reviews deals with animal studies and human studies. Why is animal studies important? Kasi kung masyado ng complicated yung procedures, if you deal directly to the humans, then you have to try it first with lower forms of animals such as animals. Animals muna. Also, if you deal with animals, you have to avoid demonization of the use of animals, resorting to alternative methods, if not possible, least numbers of animals that will be used in the study. I was doing toxicity tests for Shell Petroleum, and they have to report the number of animals I acquired, and report how many animals were used, were sacrificed. So that's how they strict down the number of animals. Then you avoid or minimize the discomfort of the stress or pain in ethical um, imperatives. You observe human way of anesthesia, surgery, and euthanasia, and to provide better possible living conditions for the test animals. Now, these are the existing guidelines for laws for protecting welfare of animals. Basic International, you have the CIOMS, and then the Guidelines for Care and Use of Laboratory Animals, Institute of Laboratory Animal Resources, National Research Council of USA. So national part naman, you have the Animal Welfare Act, which I am going to read something, a provision of that. You have the DA Administrative Order 40 and the PALAS, that's Philippine Association for Laboratory Animal. Now, this is the for the Republic Act 84885. It says that it shall be unlawful for any person to torture any animal or to neglect to provide adequate care, sustenance, or shelter, or to maltreat animal or subject to any dogfight or horse or dog fights or horse fights, kill or cause or procure to be tortured or deprived of adequate care, sustenance, or shelter, or maltreat or use of the same in research or experiments that not expressly authorized by the Committee on Animal Welfare. I've been an editor for Science Demand, and most of the biology studies we looked for the ethical, what you call, the approval of the ethics committee, animal ethics committee. This one is to deal with clinical trials. Um, you have to have the considerations, you do have the collaboration partnership, social value, specific validity, fair subject selection, favorable risk-benefit ratio, independent review, and informed consent and respect for human subjects. We'll talk about this, I don't know, maybe later. But these are the guidelines for making clinical trials. The World Medical Association Declaration of Helsinki, which I read the principles later. You have the International Conference on Harmonization of the Technical Requirements of the Registration of Pharmaceutical on Human Use. And this is the CIOM estimate on ethical guidelines and the international ethical guidelines for epidemiological studies. We also have the National Ethical Guidelines for Health Research, Good Clinical Practice, and then the WHO standards and operational guidelines for ethics review of health-related research and human participants. This is the basic declaration of the Helsinki. You have to what? Key principles are well-being of the subject, takes precedence. You have respect for what? Persons, protection of the subject's health and rights, and special protection of the vulnerable populace. Okay. What is good clinical practice is that it's defined as a standard of design, conduct, performance, monitoring, auditing, recording, analysis, and reporting of the clinical trials or studies. Basically, if you have this GCP, It assures the public that the rights, safety, and well-being of the human subjects involved are protected. Now, our question is that many years ago, around late 1990s, there was a trial using a seaweed product for prevention of the HIV. The fourth stage of clinical trial was supposed to be infected to non-infected. Number one, there had two, it failed because number one, no one would like to volunteer. And the second one, there's an ethical issue because you cannot protect the subjects. Okay? Now, scientific misconduct, probably this is what we're mostly concerned. Um, Read fabrication, falsification, or plagiarism in proposing, performing, or reviewing research in reporting research results. Such misconduct must be committed intentionally, knowingly, or in disregard for accepted practices. Marami ito, no? Um, this is the results yung survey ng Office of Research Integrity. Tumataas na hanggang 2012. After that, wala silang ginawang data. I know, but if you go to the website, you will find that there are many cases of misconduct, even to resulting to Japanese committing harakiri, committed suicide, because na what you call the issue that they found the the mistake was, well, the data which they did not include in the paper was discovered. And so, especially on stem cell research, there's so many violations regarding to stem cell research in China because we don't know the number of fetus which they killed in doing stem cells. In ano naman, I told you a bit, na yung sa Europe naman, they would try to manipulate the data, the graphs, so that it would come out like suited to their ideas. Now, it's an ethical misconduct. Basically, it dilutes the integrity of the other scientific research. It wastes researchers' time and energies attempting to replicate or build on data presented by falsified paper and confounds the scientific communication by dividing rather than containing orderly or related data from the single group, and jeopardizes the public trust in the scientific enterprise. Now, what is data fabrication? Publications making up research findings. I know when I was still young, there were people now they would just fabricate the results, write the paper, and then publication nila. Data falsification is manipulating research data with the intention of giving false impression. This includes manipulating images such as micrographs, gels, radiological images, removing outliers to come up with a very straight line. They remove the outliers, or inconvenient results, changing, adding or omitting data points, etc. That is called data falsification. Redundant and duplicate publication is the practice of submitting the same study to two different journals. See, you're allowed only to submit one at a time. Bakit ginagawa ito ng mga scientists? Basically, it's the competition to get more points and get promoted. Guidelines on good publication practice state that authors can only submit their public manuscript to one journal at a time. Um, Redundant publication, basically, number one is called salami publication. Situation is that one study splits the paper into two, so you have two publications. The other one is called self-plagiarism, is what you recycle the data or you add something new, and you don't you don't acknowledge the original source. It's called what? This is called salami publication, and then it's widespread, and mostly it's widespread. Now you generate the data, you get the old data, and reprint it again. Plagiarism, busy lang, kopya ka lang, no? Many of these are done. Degrees of plagiarism are extent of copied material, originality of the copied material, position, context, or type of material, placing attribution to the material used. That's the reason why the reference material, the list of references in the publication is important, because that is when you try to find whether the veracity of what you have claimed. Ito naman, ang mga plagiarism, basically, possible violators are what? Verbatim, then or else you changing the words, and then rephrasing, and mixing slightly for a face. And we had the students before nakick out sa graduate school because what he did was, rephrase yung mga words in a article, then claim to his own. So he's kicked out. Now, if you are a research manager or research supervisor, these are the red flags, basically. There's a lack of transparency, no available raw data, pakita mo. Kasi the most important is really the notebook. In applying naman for a patent, I don't know, in the US, required noon was that the notebook has to be signed by the supervisor each day. And revolutionary findings, you tend that it's not, so it's too good to be true. So you begin to think about whether that is true or not. So you have to investigate. And again, misleading statistics. According to Mark Twain, you have the lies, damn lies, and statistics. Now also, this is called small lies and big lies. This was quoted in a speech by J. Thomas of ORA. Now, ethical publishing. 5 reasons you have to publish ethically. Ensures scientific progress, protects life and planet, promotes ethical behavior. And good reasons, it's good for your reputation. That's the only way. Acting integrity by open door opportunity. When I had students, I always tell them to publish because their names will be immortalized. I know when I started to publish way back in 1979, wala pa yung mga incentives to be given. But our incentive basically is to have our names in the American Journal Society, abstracts of the American Chemical Society. Kasi once you publish, nandoon na yung name mo, and it's what? And anybody could search that journal. You're immortalized. Now, in ethics publishing, you have to submit the animal studies, clinical trials, results. Um, Authorship's basically issue is on that um, with the author, you have to have to be an author, you have to have the knowledge author, and also there's an issue on acknowledged authorship. Um, you have to declare also your conflict of interest and ethical problems, basically on um, especially with dealing with patients. There's plenty of ethical issues there. Now, you avoid committing copyright infringements by when writing the manuscripts. You cite the literature, you paraphrase cited literature at once. Do not use full sentences. And then if using words or sentences, quote, then cite source. If quoting more than 10, 50 words, ask permission of the copyright owner. Now, authorships should be made substantial when there's a substantial intellectual contribution to the overall study. These are some areas. You have the original conceptualization, design of studies and experiments, completion, analysis, and interpretation, modeling data, writing up for publication, answering reviewers, revisions, and finalization of paper for publication. Those are areas which you might like to consider in the authorship. Authorship should agree to the as a co-author and should accept responsibility for the papers content. No. Now, this one, many of the papers usually have what honorary authorship. That's not allowed. It's not ethical. I know then there's a case. Then of course it's a poster, but the what as you see fired the RAs because the RAs made a poster, but it did not include his name. So that president of the state university did not renew the contract of the research assistants. So, important reminders, if you are writing a paper, you should keep sure that there's an acknowledgement section, the funding agency or the contribution number, and then the bibliographic, verify the bibliographies or the references. Now, if your reviews, you accept only papers in the reviewer's field of expertise. Keep the review in confidence. I know in UP dati, there was a rule na if you submit promotions, you will submit also your review of a certain article, which I objected. Because it's supposed to be, review is supposed to be confidential. You have to objective, fair, and avoid bias. Use materials in the reviewed material until you not use the materials in the reviewed paper until it has been already published, and complete the submit review or edit within a reasonable period of time. Kaya sometimes kasi in journals, for example, Journal of Applied Psychology, they give you 1 month. And after, on the third week, they would send you notices so submit your review. Sa Pilipinas yata, ano yata you'll be required to review only in 2 weeks. And then, problema ko dyan is that in the Philippines kasi, you don't have the database, actually you don't have any more contact with Web of Science, which you would verify the references. it will take you long to review. But yun na, unlike yung mga journals for applied psychology, yung Severe, sa Presumable Log, they have already a database in which you could just click the author and lalabas yung mga references and you could check. Lalabas yung article. And then, maintain ethical standards of the journals basically is the journal management and professional organizations. Okay? In collaboration with academe, government, and industry, basically, again, these are the same issues on authorship, na about regarding origin work, same issue. And these are the next, issues regarding conflicts of interest. Yung universities kasi, uh, and university foundations own stocks in private companies that supports research on campus. So that would cause some kind of a, whether manipulated yung data kasi they own stocks. Investigators, professors also have consulting arrangement with the company. So medyo doubt ka whether that's independent or not. The other issues that information research and publication bias. Private companies tend to distort data or results for private gain or publish data for results that will benefit, whereas academic practices do not fabricate or falsify data. Private companies tend to follow procedures and methods that tend to promote the interest of the industry, whereas academic practices that follow methods and procedures that reduce the impact of financial, personal, political, cultural, and other biases. Ethical issues also, you have the private companies tend to control the research. Researchers speak or write about investigation, whereas the academic research practices, researchers are allowed to speak or write about, investigate, anything as long as they do not harm someone else. Ethical issues again in terms of trade secrets. Siyempre, the trade secrets, the companies protect trade secrets, intellectual property. Academic practices tend to share data, technology, and resources. Ethical issues, again, basically funding issues is centered basically on problem selection, research design, data collection, data analysis, data interpretation, and publication of data sharing. So basically, the conclusion on you're talking of ethics, basically, honesty is integrity. So you have to be honest. Conclusions, 5 ways to ways supervisors can promote research integrity. Basically, you have to be available, unapproachable, you review raw data, communicate your expectations, provide training and welfare guidance, and then know your research integrity officer. We talk about predatory journals because predatory journals, marami to ngayon, is an open access publishing business model, involves charging publications fees to authors without providing editorial and publishing services associated to legitimate journals. And then there is ethical breaches because it lacks the trust, deception, and negligence. I had one student write a paper, and immediately, the same day, he got an acceptance of the journal, which I began to doubt. Because nandun na din yung you have to pay $100 to be accepted. So I told the student, no, do not submit to the journal. Okay? Um, yeah. Okay. This is a hijack journal from scientists, University of San Carlos. Hijack journal. In hijack, so that the authors would submit to this journal and then they pay. After the payments made, is gone. Actually, the original journal is this. Ibang-iba. So you should be careful with the hijack journals as well as uh, predatory conferences. I know somebody, they went to Europe, and then pagdating doon sa hotel na supposed to be the venue of the conference, wala pala. But they already paid the registration fee. So probably you should also be careful with that one. And then I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Cruz, the NAS, si Dr. Jenny Reyes, Jenny, and then NSI staff, and then the UPAU staff. Okay, maraming salamat po. Oh, by the way, um, you'll notice at the back, at the front, I have this picture kasi when I was an editor, this was given to me to share by Springer because it's about guidelines for editors-in-chief, associate editors, and managing editors about publishing. Okay, there's a new issue now. There's a new edition which you might like to go get through internet. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Montaño. So again, please reserve your questions for the open forum later. Our next speaker is a Career Executive Service Officer or CESO 4, lawyer by profession with experience in intellectual property, environmental law, public policy, public administration, and organizational planning, project management, international cooperation, legislative affairs, and trade negotiations. She holds a degree in Bachelor of Arts in Public Administration cum laude from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She earned her Bachelor of Laws from San Beda College of Law and her Master's in Politics and Public Policy as an Australian Development Scholar in Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia. She received her Master of Laws specializing in intellectual property from Ateneo Law School. She is also a professor of patent law, industrial designs, and plant variety protection at the Ateneo Law School since 2013, and previously a professor of intellectual property law and lecturer of intellectual property law bar review at the Philippine Christian University. Prior to her appointment as a bureau director, Attorney Medrano served as assistant director of the Bureau of Patents for almost 8 years. She has received the following citations in recognition for her remarkable service and performance. Finalist 2018 Presidential Gawad Career Executive Service Award. Gawad CES Award recognizes members in the Career Executive Service for exemplary performance and significant contributions. Service Excellence Award for her leadership in the ISA IPEA project. Team IPOFEL Award for outstanding performance as Assistant Director of Patents in 2012. Team IPOFEL Award for significant achievement in guiding the passage of Republic Act 10372 or the copyright law. Please welcome Director Lolibet R. Medrano.
Ito po yung clicker. Ito po, water. Ay, next. Ito lang. Dr. Jane Reyes of the UP Open University, other officials, professors of UPOU, as well as the very able staff, Dr. Marco Nemesio Montaño. Um, Other university officials present, fellow workers in government. I know that there are also representatives from different government agencies, fellow alumni of the UP University of the Philippines. Um, Magandang umaga, good morning. Um, while I am an alumna or an alumnus of UP, this is actually my first time to be in UPLB. And it is such a great honor and privilege to be standing before you and to talk to you about intellectual property in relation to research and development. Um, I am here representing our Director General, Josephine R. Santiago, um, who is in a conference in Okinawa, um, also with research and development related activity organized by the World Intellectual Property Organization. But this is especially an auspicious occasion for the intellectual property because we have been working towards mainstreaming intellectual property into research and into the research and development ecosystem. And we thank UPOU for this significant occasion. And our presence this morning is actually a testament to the um, increasing awareness on the role of intellectual property in the overall research and development ecosystem. So maraming salamat at binigyan nyo ng pagkakataon ang Intellectual Property Office. At least now we know that we are in the radar of universities. And while we have been working with a lot of you, especially the members of our Innovation Technology Support Offices, we know that MSU is part of that network and also UPLB. So this is an auspicious occasion for us. Okay, so let me start my presentation. I will be talking about an overview of the intellectual property. I understand that some of you may be um, have limited exposure already, but um, this might be the first time that you will be hearing about intellectual property. So I'll just go through um, the different intellectual property rights, also the importance of intellectual property, and then I'll go into intellectual property management. I'll also discuss the IP cycle and the different programs and initiatives of the Intellectual Property Office, and some takeaway from the presentation. Okay, so intellectual property has been defined as the products of creations of the mind. These would be inventions, literary artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. And intellectual property is usually divided into two classes. One would be the industrial property, and this would include patents, industrial designs, trademarks, and geographical indications. So inventions would be any technical solution to a problem in any field of human activity, which involves inventive step, which is new, and which is industrially applicable. It has a protection period of 20 years from the date of filing, and inventions are usually issued over products, processes, or an improvement of a product or a process. And among the different patents, inventions would have the highest technical standard because it involves inventive step. Okay, inventions. You may not know this, but Michael Jackson actually holds an invention over his anti-gravity shoe. That's why he could lean at such an angle without falling, because of the special apparatus that is in the heel of the shoe. Um, and then The next class would be utility model, or in other jurisdictions, it's called petty patents. It also is a technical solution to a problem which is also new, but it does not involve inventive step. But this must also be industrially applicable. So the protection period for utility models is 7 years. That is not renewable, also counted from the date of filing. And usually utility models are issued over improvements of products or processes. Okay. These would be some utility models, butter stick. Um, of course, you would see that, of course, these articles or products are actually obvious. So that's why it's just utility model. Okay. And so there's not really nothing inventive about it, no? And then the third would be industrial design. It is any composition of lines or colors in any three-dimensional form, whether or not associated with lines or colors. And this would give special appearance to and can serve as pattern to an industrial product or handicraft. So compared to an invention or a utility model, industrial design would actually focus on the aesthetics or the appearance of a product rather than the technical element. So designs of shoes or designs of the bicycle would be the industrial design. That would be the IP right. But if there's a new technology involved in the bicycle, then that new technology would be covered by an invention patent. Okay. Um, Home furnitures, office furnitures would also be covered by industrial designs. And then we have layout designs or of integrated circuits. That would be what's inside your laptops and your computers. Okay. But it would be interesting to know that even if we have a law on layout designs, the Intellectual Property Office has not received any application on this matter. Okay. So for this, I just clipped some pictures of products that we may find interesting. So the first picture would be a motorless electric fan, actually. The second would be a menu, but it has a special pen that goes with it. So if you put the pen in the box, that would light up, and that would notify the kitchen of what's being ordered by a customer. So that's in Japan. So that's how high tech they are in ordering. And Post-it is actually included in the U.S. Patent and Trademarks Office Hall of Fame for inventions. And then the one on the left would be an artificial heart, and that obviously would be covered by an invention. The one on the left is actually a product which doubles as a bottle opener and at the same time a cup. And this would be covered by industrial design. That's a toothpick holder, also a toothpick holder. So you would know that there are different IP rights. So an invention over the machine or the coffee machine, the industrial design over the design of the capsule, or a utility model over the case of the capsule or the box of the capsule. And then you would have trademark for the mark that produces the coffee, and then trade secret for the formula in the capsule, and then copyright for the billboards or the advertising materials. Okay. So trademark is also another form of industrial property right. And the most famous trade secret that we know, could you guess, is actually the formula for Coke. It has never been disclosed, and that's why Coca-Cola continues to produce that distinct taste without being copied by other companies. Okay. So just a summary, In terms of the different patents, you would see that industrial design, which only concerns itself with aesthetics or special appearance, would be at the lowest level in terms of the technical standard that is required, because it just has to be new and original. And then utility model, because it's new and industrially applicable, then the highest technical standards would be applied to inventions which would require it to be new, inventive, and industrially applicable. Okay, why is it that we have to talk about intellectual property? Because now, in the information age, intellectual property is a recognized valuable financial asset. And it is also a strategic asset that sets apart business from its competitors. And especially so for very advanced technologies, like for example our mobile phones, our laptops. These are these are fast developing technologies, and if one is not careful in terms of keeping up with the latest developments on these technologies, then the technology could be outdated, and that could spell disaster for a certain business. IP are also considered as intangible assets, and since these are resources, these should be managed carefully. So that's why IP management is crucial. Okay. Just to illustrate how intellectual property is at this day and age, these are the no, these would be the top five global brands: Amazon, um, Apple, Google, Samsung, and Facebook. For the past years, these are actually the same companies, except that they just vary in ranking every year. So you would notice that for these companies, these are very technology intensive companies, and then innovation is really the name of the game. Okay. So can academe and intellectual property exist? Okay. There are actually two schools of thought. The old school of thought, or the traditional school of thought, is actually more of the purist approach. Universities and public research institutions' main function is to disseminate knowledge to the public. That is done through teaching or undertaking research, and of course, eventually publication. So therefore, intellectual property, since it grants exclusive rights to inventors or creators, this runs against the public function of educational institutions. So for this school of thought, intellectual property is not really embraced. But the second school of thought would say that universities and public research institutions, in carrying out their public function or disseminating knowledge, generate intellectual property in the process. So therefore, intellectual property is a byproduct of these public functions, and therefore can be protected. Slowly, and we are very pleased to know that more and more universities and public research institutions are embracing the value of intellectual property. Okay. So the World Intellectual Property Organization says that universities and public research institutions serve the public interest by disseminating knowledge through both research and teaching. And the IP generated are assets that can be utilized to further carry out the public function. Okay. Just to give you a picture of how the international patent system is at the moment. For 2017, the total applications filed through the Patent Cooperation Treaty, this is the universal filing system for patents or inventions. If an inventor would want to have his invention protected in several jurisdictions, that inventor will have to file the application through the Patent Cooperation Treaty and designate the jurisdictions or the countries where he or she would want the patent to be protected. So for 2017, 243,500 patent applications were filed. And this is a 4.5% increase from the 2016 filings. And it may interest you to know that the top five fields of technology would be computer technology, digital communication, electrical machinery and apparatus, also the energy technology, medical technology, and measurements. So if we would want to look at how the international patent system is working, we look at the statistics and probably reflect on um, the portfolio that we have in the university and how it figures into the international patent system. Okay, so what about the contributions of universities and public research organizations? So this is actually a graph of how many applications have been received in the PCT system from 2001 until 2014. And you would notice that um, compared to 243,500 applications in 2017, um, there's only about 9.9% coming from universities and public research organizations of the total PCT filings. Okay. So in terms of its share, and this is for the 2015 figure, universities um, account for 5.4% of total PCT applications filed, with business, of course, having the biggest share of 84.8%, and then individuals at 8%, and then 1.9% for government agencies or governments. Okay, and now we look at how the world is shifting in terms of innovation. In 2007, Asia only accounted for 27.6% of PCT filings. But in 2017, it has become the largest and the most dominant player in the PCT, accounting for 49.1% of total patents filed through the PCT. So there's a shift from the Western countries or the advanced economies in the West towards Asia. And this is largely accounted by R&D being done in Japan, South Korea, China, and increasingly India. Okay. So we are at a very good time. And if this collaboration and appreciation of IP and its role in R&D is going to continue its momentum, we should take advantage of this shift towards Asia because a lot of investments are coming in, and we might actually be in a good place um, to really maximize the opportunities that this shift is ushering. Okay. Now, this is a very striking slide. Um, there were about 3,000 million invention applications received from different countries. Okay. China received 1.3 million, and mostly Chinese applications come from the Chinese or the local or the residents. In the US, it's 605,571, and most would come from local filers. That's also true for Japan, South Korea, and the European Patent Office. These are what we call the IP5s. These are the biggest generators of inventions in the world. And if we look at the Philippines, we only received 3,340 applications, which are mostly foreign applications, particularly from the US and Japan and Europe, in that order. But if you look at the resident filings, it's just 299. So if on a per capita basis, we only produce one invention for every 351,170 Filipinos. Looking at the 2015 population, which is about 105 million. So this is actually a cause of concern, and it's good that I would like to share this with you because this might be a wake-up call for us. There could be several reasons for this. Low level of awareness on intellectual property could be one. Funding, limited funding could be another. So there's a lot of there's a story behind this slide, and I hope that these activities such as this R&D colloquium could make a difference, and probably perhaps in 10 years time we could be seeing a more encouraging result and a more different slide for that matter. Okay. So patent filings, as or I already mentioned, for 2018 January to October of this year, we have received 3,319, and we have one more quarter to go. So we think that filings for 2018 will actually break the record for the past 10 years. Okay. So as I mentioned, mostly foreign applications are coming from US, Japan, and then from Germany and Switzerland. Okay. So why should we engage in IP management, or why should universities engage in management, in IP management? And my favorite proof for this is actually the Gatorade. Okay, let's look at the story of Gatorade. But so far, I think this is in 2016, Gatorade has received about 1.2 billion US dollars as royalties for the University of Florida. Okay, so let's look at the story of Gatorade. In 1965, a team of doctors, led by Dr. Robert Cade, developed sports drink for the University of Florida football team. And this was funded by the US National Department of Health. So it was quite successful that Dr. Cade offered the product in its entirety to the university's head of sponsored research in 1966 in exchange for $10,000. But the university declined. So the team approached Stokely Van Camp, which is the subsidiary of Quaker Oats, to sell it for $1 million. But the company turned it down and instead offered to pay the team $25,000 upfront, a 5,000 signing bonus, and 5% royalty on every gallon sold. Then the company started marketing the product in July 1967. And it paid $25,000 to be the official drink of the National Football League. Okay, it became a success, and lawsuits were filed by the university versus the researchers and also the government agency funding the research against the researcher. So again, this is why it's very important to have an IP policy in the universities to make sure that legal issues such as ownership over an IP right, such as revenue sharing in royalties, could be settled at the outset. Okay? So the suit by the government was dismissed when the doctors agreed to back off on the 3 patents that they had filed for the drink and publish the formula in a medical journal. So there you go about publication and the importance of publication, and how the public interest is being served by public institutions, particularly universities. So Gatorade trade, the Gatorade Trust, and it's called Gatorade because the athletes of the University of Florida are called Gators after the alligators in the swamps of Florida. So it's called Gatorade. They settled with the school, and the first royalty period began in September 1972. So to date, it has received more than 1.2 billion US dollars in terms of royalty. And the University of Florida continues to receive annual royalties from the company. And eventually, the subsidiary was acquired by Pepsi, and so Pepsi is now marketing Gatorade. Okay. So in terms of total license revenues, um, these would be the top universities in the US and the amount of revenues that they receive from royalty. So you have there on top of the list Northwestern University for about 1.3 billion US in terms of royalty, and the University of Florida to about 260 million dollars in terms of annuity on the patents that they have. Okay, so let's look at the local context. UP Manila was able to patent the Sambong tablet and the Lagundi pediatric syrup, and it was able to enter into a licensing agreement with Pascual Laboratories with the assistance of the OST. And the technologies licensed are the Lagundi tablet, Lagundi pediatric syrup, Sambong, and Acapulco lotion. The first license was issued in November 1995 for Lagundi and Sambong tablet, and in 1999 for Lagundi pediatric syrup. They also have trademarks over Lagundi, Ascoff, and Ria for Sambong. And there are a lot of product variants in the market already on strawberry flavored, banana flavored Lagundi pediatric syrup. And from the initial remittance of 164,000 for royalties and license fees on Lagundi and Sambong products in 1997, they were able to receive more than 13.8 million in 2010. And the total remittance amounted to more than 50 million for royalties and license fees from 1997 to 2010. So this is really a success story in terms of R&D going into IP commercialization. And our wish at the IP office is that all universities should enjoy this kind of success story. Also, we have the University of San Carlos story on turning waste into gold. They were able to develop a biorefinery plant that converts mango peels into useful side products such as raw materials for cosmetics, among others. You would notice that in the stores we have a lot of dried mangoes, right? And the mango seeds would be the waste product. So University of San Carlos was able to develop a technology to still use the waste product. So they get the what they call the mango kernel. That's the seed inside the seed. So you would have the husky part, that's the seed. But you open that, there's a mango kernel. And then they were able to use that um, into several products like byproduct for flour and even for cosmetics and also a chemical compound. So USC is now earning um, from that partnership, from a partnership with GEMS, with its patent to a technology being USC's equity to a private company. Okay. And also we have the story of Western Visayas College of Science and Technology, where they were able to generate a gross income of 6 million from instructional materials and software developed systems. Okay. So therefore, you would see that R&D is not an end in itself, right? R&D could be the initial step towards a publication of an article in a journal, as Dr. Montaño has discussed. But R&D also can have tangible, profitable results, okay? Especially if you commercialize it. Okay, this is the intellectual property cycle. It is composed of four stages: IP creation, IP protection, IP commercialization, and enforcement. And it is a virtuous cycle if from creation until enforcement, the different actors come together to make sure that whatever intellectual property rights are produced also get translated in terms of financial in the financial dimension. Okay. So during IP commercialization, IP creation, this would include research and development activities. And in terms of IP management, at this stage, there should be certain aspects that you consider. Is there an IP policy in place? Is ownership over the intellectual property right covered by the IP policy? You look at your existing IP portfolio. And also, it has to be clear at the outset the kind of business model for the technology transfer. Do you would want to have an exclusive licensing agreement with a certain company, for example? Would you want a spin-off company to handle IP commercialization or technology transfer arrangements? Because sometimes academe just wants to focus on the general mandate, which is education, and business matters could be better handled by another unit or another office. Or would you want to capacitate your internal staff or personnel to look into to operate the technology transfer office? Okay. For the different actors, of course, the universities and public research institutions, IPO field is also part of this because we make sure that the policy environment is conducive to innovation by having relevant laws or even policies in the office. We do capacity building from drafting the IP policy to um, undertaking seminars and trainings for university researchers and staff on prior art search, patent drafting, patent prosecution, on IP rights, technology transfer, IP commercialization, IP management, and of course the DOST, which grants research funds, and also the private sectors, which also gives research grants. In the IP registration stage, we're looking at securing the IP registration. So IP management aspects would include you identify the proper IP right. Is it going to be an invention? Is it going to be a utility model? Or you would want the researches or the research papers to be covered first by a copyright and then later on go to an invention or utility model. There's also an assessment of the invention. Is it going to be profitable? Is this new, or are there other universities undertaking the same research? Assessment of the IP portfolio. Do you want your IP portfolio to be concentrated in a fewer technologies where your university has a good reputation at in terms of academic excellence, or would you want to venture into other technologies? Are you open to having private partners um, undertake research and development? Because in Japan or in the US, for example, certain universities would be commissioned by industries and big companies to undertake research. So is your university open to those kinds of options? And the assessment of marketability. Again, the actors would be the universities and the PRIs as they would apply for registration. And then IPO fill as we ensure that processes are efficient. We provide discounts for small and medium scale filers. Also for individual filers, we give 50% discount. We also waive fees in the previous years. I don't know if you have heard of the or it is capable of being replicated, and that this could be taken up by a private company that is willing to market the product. Okay, so for example, if it's a chemical compound, like in the case of Lagundi and Sambong, then pharmaceutical companies would be the best partners for commercialization. And then you target the business partners or the buyers or the licensees for this. Like if it's an herbal medicine, then a pharmaceutical company. And then after everything is done and you have executed the appropriate agreement for technology licensing or whatever instrument that the university deems it proper, then you look at the monetization, and that would encompass marketing of the product by a private company. Okay. So just a brief mention of the different IPO field programs and activities. As I earlier mentioned, we give 50% discount for small and medium entities. We waive filing fees for small entities for trademarks for women and entities with majority of where majority of the officers are women, or what we call the wanna invent. So if an individual entrepreneur is a female or a woman, then if he or if she files for the trademark, we do not charge any filing fee. That is also to encourage the participation of women in the creation of intellectual property. And we do capacity building for prior art search, patent drafting, patent prosecution, and technology transfer, and IP commercialization. We also tie up with universities. MSU, for example, has requested IPO field to conduct patent drafting courses. So we also go to the universities. You let us know what kind of capacity building you need, what kind of technologies you're working on, and we will send the appropriate speakers to your seminars or trainings. We also do technical assistance in patent drafting and prosecution. And sometimes we establish linkage between universities and industries. We know that in the entire IP cycle, it's probably IP commercialization which is lagging behind. And so we're working also with different private organizations and chambers of commerce to look into universities as rich sources of IPR rights and as gold mine for commercial products that they may wish to look into. Okay, so we also have we for your information, we already have the electronic filing system. So you need not go to IPO field to file your patents, utility models, inventions, or trademarks. You can do this online at the comforts of your offices and at your homes 24/7. We will also soon we have deployed e-doc for trademarks and e-correspondence, which means that our outgoing and incoming um, communications with applicants can now be done electronically for trademarks. For patent, we're still piloting this and will probably be rolled out in 2019. Okay, so everything will be done electronically in 2019. We have IP satellite offices in the different areas and cities and regional centers as shown in this slide. We also do patent analytics for MSMEs and also for, no, we also do patent analytics for big companies. And mine to market, as I've earlier mentioned, we have several interventions from IP creation until commercialization. We have the network of 85 innovation and technology support offices, and I know that a lot of you are part of this network. So we give commercialization guidance program. We have launched the IP Depot, which is the matching between academe and the industry for purposes of IP commercialization. We are also capacitating ITSOS on IP financing and valuation. We are part of the Inventors Assistance Program of the World Intellectual Property Organization. I'll deal with that later, a couple of slides after this. And I've mentioned the patent protection incentive package and patent analytics. Okay. So for the ITSO franchise, we are glad that from 2012 until 2017, we have received 423 patent applications and 1,359 utility model applications for the entire period. So I think we're also doing a lot, and we are working together to improve or enhance the innovative capacity and production of the country to make Philippines more competitive. Okay, just a word on disclosure. Okay, the Inventors Assistance Program is a WIPO program that caters to under-resourced inventors. So what this program does is to have different patent lawyers or patent agents all over the world. But I think we have so far the US, Japan, the Philippines as among those participating countries, Colombia. So there are pro bono patent attorneys that could help under-resourced inventors. For example, patent attorneys in the US helping local inventors in the Philippines to get patent protections for inventions filed in the US. So that's how it works, because it's a lot of resource um, to to raise just to get patent protection in the US, because you have to pay substantial fees for patent attorneys. So that's how the Inventor Assistance Program works. And then just a quick word on disclosure. Of course, I've mentioned that an invention has to be new, it has to be inventive, and it has to have industrial application. In terms of novelty, it can only be considered new if it is not part of prior art. And prior art is defined as everything that has been made available to the public. I'm being very fast because time is up, but I only have 5 slides left. I just wanted to emphasize this because a lot of you are into research, and you may not be aware of the implications of your publications. Publications are important, but in terms of intellectual property, you have to be very cautious on the publications that you do. Okay, so everything that has been made available to the public anywhere in the world before the filing date or the priority date of the application is considered prior art. So therefore, everything, written description, publications in journals, oral descriptions, internet publications, prior use, or any other way that that the application that the invention is disclosed to the public is considered prior art. However, there is an exemption to that. If a disclosure during the 12-month period prior to the filing date or priority date was made by the inventor, a third party, and the information is obtained directly or indirectly from inventor or the patent office, and the information was published by mistake, although this could be considered public disclosures, this will not be considered prior art. But you have to be very careful with the 12-month date. Okay, example, if the disclosure date was made November 15, 2014, and um, the researcher or the inventor can still file an application up to November 15 of 2015, because that's still covered by the 12-month non-prejudicial disclosure. If the application is filed after November 15, then his publication will be considered prior art to his patent application. So make sure that if you want to disclose, but you still want to file a patent over that research, then either you delay the publication until such time that you are able to file, or you hasten the filing of your application, so that it falls within the 12-month period. Okay. Okay. So yesterday, for example, November 14, 2018, Mr. Inventor presented before the Annual Convention of Physicians a solar-powered apparatus used for performing surgical procedure. Question: can Mr. Inventor file the patent application on November 21, 2019? Yes, he can, but his disclosure will be considered a prior art. So parang wag na rin lang kasi na-disclose mo na, di ba? What is the effect of the previous disclosure? If the application is filed after November 14, 2019, then the disclosure will be considered prior art, and we will reject the patent application based on that prior art, even if it involved that same person making that disclosure. Okay. So takeaway, the use of IP not only complements R&D but ensures a more sustainable R&D program. IP management is critical not only to rationalize our R&D expenditure but to ensure that there is a return on R&D in expenditure. And IPO field and government agencies, particularly DOST, have different programs and initiatives to assist universities, public research institutions, businesses, and individuals from IP creation until commercialization. So, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Director Medrano. Now, our next speaker will discuss about open and distance e-learning in R&D management. She is currently an affiliate faculty and program chair of the Diploma in Research and Development Management of the Faculty of Management and Development Studies in UPOU. She is also an associate professor of the Institute for Governance and Rural Development, College of Public Affairs at UPLB. She also served as the assistant to the dean of CPAF in 2013 to 2015. She also served as the director of the Research Management Center, or RMC, of UPLB from 1997 to 2002. For, for and e-learning, she has taught and authored books and learning modules in technology evaluation, commercialization, and utilization, support systems to research, R&D management internship, R&D consortium operations and management, as well as design instructional modules for mathematics education, calculus for mathematics teachers, and communication research, all for the postgraduate courses. As a researcher, she has conducted researches on R&D productivity benchmarking, assessment of the administration and performance of R&D organizations, agricultural research, prioritization, innovation systems, technology evaluation and utilization, assessment of protected areas management, among others. On protection of intellectual property and technology commercialization, she has been trained in patent scoping, drafting, and examination. She is one of the two first patent agents of UPLB, passing the non-chemical patent agent qualifying exam of the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. She also assists the Center for Technology Transfer and Entrepreneurship of the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research and Extension of UPLB as its Innovation and Technology Service Office, Representative and Virtual Intellectual Property Office. Please welcome Dr. Jane C. Reyes.
Okay, good morning. So my presentation will be a sequel of Dr. Cuino's presentation yesterday on professionalizing R&D management. And I will be focusing on the open innovations, no, open arena for innovations in R&D management learning. So we are talking about community of learners. So we believe in lifelong learning. There is no age, no gender, no sex. I mean, gender is different. No sex, no ethnic origin, no color for learning. So who are the community of learners? So these are everybody in all walks of life. And I can call myself as a professional learner. I don't have the epitome. I don't have all the knowledge in the world. And right now, I'm still learning from our resource persons. Even yesterday, I get a lot of information from innovative um, entrepreneur like Mr. Cruz, Philip Cruz, and the wisdom for ethical guidelines from Dr. Montaño, and the um, incentivizing researchers, even you are resource. I like that under-resourced university from the talk of Dr. Teves and the other resource persons like Engineer Manayaga, who is emphasizing on community participation in applying innovations in research. So there is peace and order in the land if everybody has a job to do, income to spend anyway. So in the technical, meaning in the academic parlance, we can say we are knowledge community. The academe is a knowledge rich community. We encourage intellectual discourse. If there is all agreements in the university, then it is not an academe. So intellectual discourse is one of the highlights in the academe. So in knowledge management, sharing is important. Yesterday, it was emphasized that even if there are 40, 50 of us here or more, there are a lot of people, a lot of learners watching online, offshore, and within the country, and probably more when we upload it in YouTube. And this is not a requirement for our students, by the way. It's a supplementary material for them when they have the video clip or the VOD, video on demand, no watched. So, knowledge sharing is the construction of knowledge. And in educational pedagogy, we emphasize constructivism. It is more of the merging of blending of knowledge that we learn from childhood to the present. So my objective in the presentation of this is really to close the colloquium on innovations in R&D management, because we should not stop innovating. Publish or perish? No, it's not publish or perish. Innovate or perish. So that includes patent, no? Yesterday we have talked about helping one another in research if you want something to commercialize, no? A creative knowledge product commercialize. We have to help one another. And this is instrumental for regional consortia and the networks in the education system. So, and then resonate. Anong resonate in physics? Resonate is always to let it heard, no? Let it heard that we have to innovate even our learning system, teaching learning processes. So the story retold. Dr. Cuino had the history of R&D management in the Philippines. This is a story retold. I'll just give the data, the evidence, because we are science-based, evidence-based. R&D management in Asia started in agriculture. R&D management in in the country in the whole world started in industrial R&D. Here in the Philippines and elsewhere in Asia is on agricultural R&D. So it started way back in the 1970s. Okay. And then the The product of this project, it's a 5-7 year project, is the creation of a formal course on R&D management, as well as a center, the first in Asia on research management. So even right now, we haven't really stopped continuing the objective of Research Management Asia project initiated by CIRCA. We are building up the cadre, the cream of the crop among our scientists who will more often than not become research managers like Dr. Arnel, Dr. Teves, Dr. Rasco, Dr. Montaño. They are real true blue scientists, and look at them now. I mean, before Dr. Montaño retired, of course. Look at Dr. Teves now as the vice president, no? So you cannot help but climb up, no? I don't want to say climb up because a dual ladder in promotion, scientist level, management level. But you cannot help but assume a managerial position. So this is a fact of life in our contemporary world. So that was the creation of a center, and Dr. Cuino mentioned about the Research Management Center of UP Los Baños, and we formed the Philippine Association of Research Management. He means to say that PhilArm had membership all over Asia because we have a connection with CIRCA, and CIRCA has participants all over the Asia. So our alumni for PhilArm are, are not only Filipinos. So they are also coming from different Asian countries. So, well, like American Association of Management, they are not all Americans. They may be coming from other citizens from other countries. So we conducted researchers, designed courses, and and innovate. Though with the leadership of Dr. Cuino, we have these little books, little modules, wherein it says all. Before Open University was created, we had these modules, 30 of them, with supplementary video case, localized. The English you can understand. So, and then there are games, there are simulation, and even at the time, transparency was still being used. Even the transparencies which you are going to produce, it's in those little modules. So we have this project funded by International Development Research Center in Canada in partnership with CIRCA. So that were some of the innovations. So these are the video cases. Um, Many of the RMC course staff before are here at UPOU. So the R&D management is strong here at UPOU. With the demise of RMC, two vice chancellors, the dean, and we, affiliate faculty of UPOU, came from RMC. So we conducted training courses almost to all national line agencies, R&D agencies. So right now, these training courses are being spearheaded by PhilArm. And during breakfast, Dr. Cuino mentioned that they will be going to Malaysia. All the REARCs, Department of Agriculture, Regional Integrated Agriculture Research Center directors will be brought to Malaysia, to Mardi, for cross visit anyway. And we are doing that. No, now it's PhilArm. It's a non-government, non-profit organization. So even during the time of RMC, we have offering diploma in R&D management, and it's offered in dual mode, residential and Those are the learning packages, learning management packages. So we are offering um, residential and distance. But the residential, we don't have any enrollee with the College of Economics and Management. What with the distance learning, we have first batch. Dr. Jean, ilan kayo nun? Yan. He was one of the first alumnus of the RNDM. He's now Dr. Jean from Department of Education. So there are about 60 in a year that time, and they are there without scholarship. They're paying on their own way back in 1995, 1996. So wala po kaming takers from the residential. But from the open, I mean, not yet open, but from the distance learning. And I'll mention why. Iba po yung modules namin noon. Module-based kami noon. Hindi pa virtual ang presence. So the story continues. Even in 2003, there was, RMC is no longer existing. But according to Dr. Cuino, it's not the organization which is important. It's the people. And we are just following him. He's my mentor. The seed was already planted. It's with Phil Aham, it's with UPOU. In all the participants, alumni that we have, um, we have trained. No, we have trained. So the story will continue. No? And as long as there is research and development, as long as there's science and technology, R&D management will still be in demand. Okay, so the hub of learning R&D management can be accessed through formal education and non-formal education. The Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research and Extension at UPLB has some modules that you can uh, avail of, but minimum of 10 participants so that we can conduct training for you, customized. The Philippine Association of Research Managers and UPOU offers diploma in R&D management. And we also tailor fit non-degree courses like what we did with Picard. We had a project with Picard on consortium R&D management, R&D consortium management. So we have piloted this. So instead of going around the regional consortium, they can go online. But you can have face-to-face via Skype for the presentation of outputs. So the Diploma in R&D Management is one of the first pioneering courses, programs offered in UPOU. Okay, uh, and Circa, no, what's happened to Circa? Circa, who was the first to espouse R&D management. It is still, from time to time, depending on demand, market needs, it it conducts R&D management course. So you can see in the picture, Dr. Cuino where is this, sir? Malaysia? So they're going around, meaning people from the former RMC are invited to do a courseware design for Circa to have this training. So Dr. Cuino was stopped. Sometimes if I have time, I have 3 hats. So we have some engagements with Circa. And then the DOST National Academy of Science and Technology, where we have here as one of our partners, we have R&D management, intellectual property as two of the courses, two of the topics I teach, as in the RUPE. Okay, so and I mentioned yesterday morning about what is RUPE, Research Upgrading Performance Evaluation. So the 2012 PCARD UPOU, we developed a module for PCARD for R&D, and they are using this module only face-to-face, or people in the staff from the R&D consortium in the region will go to PCARD and they use this module. So we go back to the paradigm of constructivism. Uh, Although there's a law of entropy, but we believe that you can perpetuate. Organizations seldom die, ideas seldom die. And in a way, when we go back to the paradigm, we will have continuous improvement, continuous learning. That's why I call it open arena. There's no stopping us to innovate. Even when, para bang patent yan o copyright. Copyright, by the way, no, Engineer Medrano, is 50 years validity. So why is it Darna? And Captain Barbell is sometimes in GMA, sometimes in Channel 2, ABS, or sometimes in Kaibigan in Channel 5. Because the sibling are still alive, enjoying the royalty of Mars Ravelo. So that is copyright. For patent, how many years? 20 years. For utility model, 7 years. For industrial design, 5 years. Why is it that utility model and industrial design are only very few years? Of course, because you have to innovate. Plus, okay, 15 total. So you can renew. So it's really continuing. And in Japan, there are millions of patents just for screws, yung tornilyo. Ibahin lang ang angulo, ibahin lang ang size, ibahin lang ang kung Phillips siya o yung isang hiwa lang. There are millions of patents. So, di ba exciting? It's an open arena for innovation. Okay, and technology is integrated in the classroom. Some of you here are not yet online, but you can use technology in the classroom. Do you know right now, 9 to 12, I have an ongoing exam at UPLB. Actually, I have class now. I mean, Mr. Raymart there is one of my students. He just submitted yesterday his exam while he was here. While I am here, I am also handling course via Edmodo. Okay? So there is Blackboard. There are a lot of free and licensed application software that you can use. Brother, isn't it? Edmodo is your favorite, especially the timed exam. You can open the exam anytime within 24 hours, 2 days, 3 days. But once you open, you have to complete it. So what is important is good, smooth, stable internet connectivity, which we don't have yet in the Philippines. That's one of the challenge, no? Technology and education, this is growing. We have the millennials, no longer centennials, but millennials, and the Gen Z, the digital natives, children who were born with technology. My 2-year-old grandson knows how to look for the video in the YouTube faster than the grandfather. So you know that I'm sleeping with the grandfather. So what are technologies in the classroom? It's not only online, you have the audio visuals. You have the experiments. That's the technology. You can have experiments, no, and group dynamics. Now for open and e-learning, we have the learning management system. OU experimented on IVLE, Integrated Visual Learning Environment, which the National University of Singapore is still using now, and they were the one who developed it. So we have the Coursera, it's an open online. We have the MOOCs, massive open online courses. Even Harvard and Princeton and the big leagues and the top 10 QS universities place their courses there. You can access them free. However, you have to pay to get a certificate or get an exam. Even the courses are free, even the references. Using Coursera and MOOCs. Okay? And Dr. Cuno is developing a short course on creativity that will be uploaded by UPOU anytime soon. via MOOCs. So you can study about creativity, apply creativity in research for free. But you cannot get a certificate, of course. There's no such, George Holman is this, sociologist, there's no such thing as free lunch. So there is always something that you have to, meaning give and take. Diploma in R&D management, as per our experience, during the time of Dr. Jean, it's still once a month study session, face to face. But it's module based, you can study on your own. So our first three batches, face to face, once a month. So people as far as Bicol and Mindoro and Marinduque physically has to go. But it is, optional. You may absent yourself. Our correspondent is via Starfish. Yung Starfish, yung audio lang. I mean, we call it Starfish because it is shaped as starfish. But you can live chat via telephone connection. We call it Starfish, but how do you call it now? But audio patch. So that those who are absent. So we have learning centers. So UPOU set up learning centers all over UP campuses. So there's one in UP Mindanao at the time. Chancellor Cuino was there. And then UP Visayas and everywhere. And if we don't have UP campuses, we have in Cagayan State University for in Taguigaraw, one of the learning center. But now it's so expensive, no? To set up learning center because once a month they have to go there. So in the year 2000, we have done fully online. So before we have sort of like a correspondence, you submit your exams, whatever, and then there's a proctor coming to and then submit your assignments. Oh, 5 minutes left. Okay. Right. So online IVLA model. So there's the lessons is in online discussions. We have activities like discussion forum, chat, wiki, choice, glossary, and there's a bonus for participating in these activities. But I had a little research on parallel spaces in learning, and it is also reinforced via Skype, FB chat, messaging, ngayon Viber. So I had some statistics there, but we lack time for me to share to you. So we build community of learners. UP Open University focuses, the dominant learners here are adult learners who have the discipline to go online and learn. So I've mentioned in the Philippines, internet connectivity is one of the major obstacles in going online. For 2 months now, PLDT, DSL in my home doesn't work. And then they're going to get full bill, no? Anyway, so building of community learners in the R&DM networking, we still connect with our FB. Dati kasi YM group, yung youth group, yung Yahoo group. Ngayon may FB na kami sa alumni, tapos merong DRNDM FB, may FMDS FB. Masyadong popular ang FB. So you have that. We still connect with one another. Okay, that's why many of our alumni are also watching now, high alumni. So summary of enrollment for the RNDM, about 121 per year. So it's more than the enrollment of DM210 in UPLB. And the learner's profile, single female. And there are Yappies and Gen X ba yun? Mga born 1980s. Okay? And self-finance, ito talagang gusto namin eh. Talagang ang kanilang motivation, self-finance. And not all are BS graduates. There is percentage that MS, PhD na. Even in biotech, is their secondary course. They don't need a degree, they need the learning. So we have vet med, even one in Pangasinan, owner of a hospital, a medical doctor. And we have nurses, we have, all sorts of professions. So it's really heterogeneous learners. So now, this colloquium is partly funded by PISYERD, and we are now upgrading the DRNDM into a master's degree. So for those who had not attended the symposium last September, we encourage you to answer the survey because you will be part of our market assessment. Okay? So we are in the process of curriculum development, and hopefully, please pray with me that we offer the Masters in R&D Management by first SEM 2019-2020. It's not a promise because we have a lot of hurdles. And then I am also meaning talking with Attorney Medrano if you wish to teach IP course in DR. So definitely in Master in R&D Management, intellectual property is one of the courses which is not offered now at UPOU or even with the RNDM. First time in the Philippines. So this is my two last slides, open arena for innovations. The Philippines is first. We claim that. And in the Asian integration, we still have the niche for R&D management. And the key is lifelong learning. Don't forget to learn. Always learn. And delivery can be in campus, off campus, open distance e-learning, and there is always a borderless learning. Okay, with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc Jane. Now, our discussant for this session earned a degree in Bachelor of Science in Biology from UPLB, Master of Management, major in Rural Development Management from UPLB, with 30 units taken under the Master of Science in Genetics, minor in Biochemistry, also from UP Los Baños. Doctor of Philosophy in Community Development with cognates in Sociology and Entomology, also from UP Los Baños. She is currently a university researcher from Institute of Weed Science, Entomology, and Plant Pathology, College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Las Bañas. Please welcome Dr. Susan T. Bacud. We would like also to invite our speakers to sit here for our discussion and later on open forum. Kung gusto niyo pong hawakan.
Um, okay. Hindi, dito na lang. Hello, it is still a good morning. And we have interesting topics for discussion, particularly on ethical, legal, and policy concerns in R&D management. So we have here three speakers this morning. The topics are timely to prepare our potential learners who are interested in open and distance e-learning in research and development management. From the topics, I get the point that it emphasizes what it means to be a researcher and what it means to manage research creativity. Our first resource person, Dr. Montaño, discussed about the paradigms of science. And we have what we call deductive research, inductive research, to come up with research conclusions, to come up with research generalizations. Um, Researchers from the biological, physical, and engineering sciences mainly use quantitative research methodology. Social scientists, on the other hand, mainly use a qualitative research methodology. For many years, issues about theoretical commensurability hindered researchers to mix the two research paradigms. But there is now an increasing trend to mix um, quantitative and qualitative research methods for the reasons that in using mixed research methods, we can better understand societal problems and we can better communicate the meanings of our research data. It was also discussed, um, there was also a discussion about the different steps in conducting research, from problem identification, formulation of hypotheses, um, formulation of research methods to test the hypothesis, data collection and analysis, and finally, making the conclusion. You see that from the discussion, we understand that the different steps in conducting research are cyclical in the sense that if you start from a research problem and now you come up with a conclusion, the research process does not stop there. Sometimes, and most often, there is a need to go back to the research problem, um, the hypothesis, to refine research methods. Uh, in order to refine the knowledge that we are able to generate from our research endeavors. In doing the scientific process, Dr. Montaño emphasized about the need for ethics in research. Doing the right things, it is about honesty, it is about integrity. He mentioned that to be able to remain ethical in conducting our research, there is a need to remain objective in making observations, respecting people, animals, plants in the environment, spending money appropriately, giving appropriate credit. And he presented different RAs, protocols, laws uh, to, to guide researchers in ethical conduct. Now, but there are pressures to make publications, pressures to become known in the research community that sometimes may tempt researchers to do otherwise, to misconduct in research activities. And actually, there's a statistics that showed the percentage of unethical conduct in research. So there are cases of fabrication, cases of falsification, and even plagiarism. So it was discussed that scientific misconduct has many implications. It affects integrity of scientific research, wastes many resources, hinders the building of knowledge, and jeopardizes public trust in scientific enterprise. Scientific misconduct perils research impact that positively address problems of the society. So there is a need to maintain ethical standards by the researchers, by research reviewers, by funding donors, by collaborators, journal publishers, and professional organizations. Now, providing training and guidance on ethical research is a challenge that needs to be addressed in offering research and development managed course. Um, Now, for the topic of Dr. Medrano, she discussed that universities and public research institutions' main function is to disseminate knowledge to the public. And intellectual property is a byproduct of public functions and therefore can be protected. Thus, IP grants do not run against the public function of educational and research institutions. Now, the protection period of IPs from the time of filing varies. 20 years for inventions, 7 years for utility models, 5 years for industrial design. Now, from filing to approval of IP application, there are cases that it may take a long time. I heard about a UPLB case that it took 12 years from the time of filing to the time of approval. So if there is 20 years protection period for an invention, there's a limited time now remaining for a researcher to maximize financial profit from generating technologies. So if that is the case, you can see now the importance or the necessity of establishing links or partnerships with commercial industries from the start of research, conceptualization, up to technology commercialization. Now, yesterday, there were issues raised from the issues raised by the resource persons. One is that if approval takes a long time, now the use of the technology to benefit the society or even to address the needs of these commercial industries is delayed. If that is the case, no? And also that issue that if it really takes that long for the approval of an IP, by the time that a technology is approved, the technology may already be passé, or there may already be new technologies that can more efficiently and effectively address the needs of commercial industries. So I think the issue there is how to fast track the application, the approval of IP application, so that there is maximization of profit generation, maximization of the use of the technologies, and yung bang immediately can be used by common people, by commercial industries. Now, I mentioned that the topics on ethical, legal, and policy concerns are timely for our potential learners for MRDM. In the previous survey made, there's about 80% who have knowledge about research and development graduate course offered by UPOU. And there's about 78% who are interested in taking online MRDM programs. And 62% of these potential learners come from private industry sectors, and these are graduates from biological, physical, and engineering sciences with BS, um, MS, PhD degrees. So, as Dr. Reyes mentioned a while ago, it's not about the degree, but it's about a continuing learning for potential students. The nature of work of the potential students for MRDM is um, research coordination and monitoring, research and development, supervision, administration, operation, management. That hopefully in revising the DRDM and coming up with the what we call the different courses to be offered, we can be able to address the needs of learners. So we are glad that the USTP shared has granted a funding to UPAU for um, the revision of the DRDM into an MRDM because of the high demand for research and development management. Um, there are technologies out there, innovations that can enhance learning in open and distance uh, education, um, and not only enhancing individual learning, but also an important one is the building of community of learners. So um, I tried to summarize and somehow raise some issues um, about the topic on ethical, legal, and policy concerns. And I would like to invite our resource persons if they have additional or have comments um, uh, that they would like further to relay to you, our learners.
If I'm
Yes, ma'am, for the speakers, if you would like to respond.
I would just like to comment on the delayed approval. I think the 12 years is actually a very extraordinary case. And I would also like to inform everyone, I wanted to cover this in my presentation, the operational efficiencies that we have been doing at the office, but I was already looking at 65 slides. So if I would have added those, it'll probably take us after lunch to discuss. But several interventions we have done already. One is we have hired additional patent examiners. So we now have 114 patent examiners. And we started doing this in 2011. So that's why, and I failed to cover this, but one of the significant achievements that we have done is the designation of the Intellectual Property Office as an international searching authority under the PCT system. We're the 23rd international authority in the world, and we're second in ASEAN, next to Singapore. So big that's a big thing for us. It's a recognition that the intellectual property office is capable of doing and delivering quality patent services at par with international standards. So to do that, we had to hire at least 100 patent examiners. So our last batch of patent examiners just reported last Monday. So we're now 114. Second is we have automized our processes. So we have a central automation processing for all the IP rights registrations. Third, before and if you have been filing with the IP office, you would get the search report probably after 18 months at and the date of the publication of the application. But now we do, and we give the patent. We give the early search report on the patent applications on the 6th month. So from 18 months, we are now giving the search report on the 6th month. And we are doing this because you only have 12 months from the date of filing to file it with the PCT. And so the greatest service that we could give is to give the early search report on the 6th month. That way, you still have 6 months to consider whether or not you want to file with the PCT or not, rather than giving it like 80 months after the filing date, which means the period for you to file the PCT would have lapsed on the 12th month. We also approve requests for early publication. So if you want to have your patent approved earlier, rather than waiting for 18 months to be published, you can actually request the IP office to publish your application on the 6th month. So we give you the search report on the 6th month and we publish it on the 6th month. That means that you have cut what 12 months in the process. So we are doing all these efficiencies, but still it's a work in progress. But just to cite statistics, as of June 2018, our turnaround time for patents is 47.9 months. So that's very big from the 12 years that has been mentioned earlier. So, but we're still on a yearly basis. The Bureau of Patents um, commits to further reduce the turnaround time. So I think our commitment for 2018 is 46.5 months, and that will still go down next year. So it's a work in progress, but these are few of the interventions that we have been doing to improve operational efficiencies.
Probably we have to clarify why PCT and then the geographic based patent. Probably you wish to explain the patent is when you file a patent here, it's only in the Philippines. That's why we encourage PCT.
Okay. One of the basic principles in intellectual property is territoriality, meaning your patent protection is only limited to the geographical jurisdiction. Meaning, if you file with the Patent Office, Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, your patent protection is only within the territory of the Philippines. Okay. The Patent Cooperation Treaty is an international filing system, which means that if you want to have your patent protected in jurisdictions or in countries outside of the Philippines, you can file that patent application with the World Intellectual Property Organization International Bureau through the PCT system, which means you only file one PCT application, but you could designate all few or all of the 145 or 50 plus member states of the PCT or the countries. So if you want to have your invention protected in Japan, US, Germany, South Korea, you can just file one PCT applications and designate those countries as the national offices you would want to secure patent from. But the timeline for you to do the PCT filing is within 12 months from the date that you first filed with the first office. So, if, for example, if you filed a local application in the Philippines, you have 12 months to decide whether you wish to file for the PCT. Or you can also file directly with the PCT and then designate countries you would want to seek patent protection from. But as a policy, the OST and the Intellectual Property Office are encouraging our local inventors to to file for PCT applications. That way, we also bring Filipino innovation at the international level.
Thank you very much. What about Dr. Jane and Dr. Montano? Would you like to respond also?
I'm just summarize that about ethics. It's just honesty is integrity. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't have anything to respond because Dr. Bakod, being an affiliate of the RNDN, is campaigning for MRNDN.
All right.
So,
Perhaps we can now open the floor for your questions. So yes, sir.
Good morning. Yeah. In case of patent infringement, who foots the bill? How do we run after the violator? How much do we pay or what? I think it would be very expensive, right?
For patent infringement cases, you have two tracks actually. If you want to go through the judicial process or you want to have the administrative process. So the administrative remedies are with the Intellectual Property Office with our Bureau of Legal Affairs. It is not when you go to the courts. It's a rather one. The process is much longer. You would of course engage the services of a lawyer for you to file the case. But with our Bureau of Legal Affairs, it's not required that you are represented by a lawyer. And our fees are much lower than the courts because sometimes the courts will look at your claims for damages, for example. So if you're claiming damages for in the millions, then the proportionate filing fee would also be based on the amount of damages that you want to recover.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm Mon from Iloilo. My question is addressed to Director Medrano. So this is my case. I published two modules for instruction purposes in the school where I am connected right now. However, the modules are not yet ISBN registered. There was no written agreement among us, I as the author, then the institution where I am connected, and the printing press. No. But there was a verbal agreement that I will be given 10% royalty for all the sales. So the case is when the Department of Education and other schools did benchmarking in our school, they were impressed with the modules and they wanted for more publication such that they wanted to commercialize. When that time happened, I was not in the school, and it was the president and the principal of our school who talked with the Department of Education. I have apprehensions about intellectual property such that I have plan of leaving the school for a year or two from now, though we have a 3-year contract with the printing press. So my concern is how can I be protected as the author since there is a disclaimer in the publication that no part of the book or will be reproduced or will be published without written permission from the author and the school, the institution.
First, let me clarify some of the basic concepts or principles in copyright. Copyright, unlike the other IP rights, copyright is protected from the moment of creation. So you don't actually need a registration like patent or trademark for you to be protected. However, we encourage that you make the copyright deposit of the copyrighted work either with the National Library or the Intellectual Property Office. And the fee is just 650 for IPO fill. So I would suggest that um, okay. So that's protection from the moment of creation. However, we encourage that you deposit it for purposes of copyright infringement later on, because your certificate is, of course, the proof that you are the owner or the creator of the copyrighted work. As to the ownership and to the royalties, it will actually depend, as I earlier mentioned earlier in my presentation. Do you have an existing IP policy in the school, and what does that IP policy provide? Does it provide for sharing of royalties? What percentage would pertain to the school and to the author? So I am not sure that about the terms and conditions of one, your contract of employment or your engagement with the school with respect to IP rights that are generated during employment, and two, also on the policies on intellectual property rights that are adopted in the office.
Thank you, ma'am. How about the others? Yes, sir.
Roel from Gordon College. Sir, I just want to give what happened, okay, with regards with publication. So when I was still connected with St. Louis in San Fernando, La Union, I have a published material with Mutya Publishing from Malabon City. Then, with regards with that one, despite in spite of you are connected with a certain institution, the president doesn't have the authority to agree with a certain institution wherein they have to use your work. It is just between the publisher and the author. It's always the agreement is like that. And with regards with how to the protection, okay, before the publication of the material, you have already the ISBN, which is being processed by the publisher from the National Library, and it is already copyrighted. So for transaction purposes, it's always the publisher and the author between other institution. The president or the management for the institution wherein you are connected, they don't have the authority to transact.
Ma'am.
I suppose it's on a case-to-case basis depending on the IP policy of the institution you are connected with. Um, Private institutions would have different IP policy compared to public institutions. So I think that would be the very basic thing. What is the existing IP policy within a university, for
Yes.
example? And it also becomes complicated if there's also funding that from government agencies like the OST, for example. So it's really on a case-to-case basis depending on the institution.
Okay, sir. Ma'am, thank you. What about the others? Would you like to ask questions? Maybe in the interest of time, we can entertain the last two questions from the floor. Yes, sir.
Um, how much does it cost these days to get a patent, uh, either for a patent or a utility model, assuming you cover everything and with the support of, say, the OST?
Um, I'm just not sure about the fees, but for it will depend on whether you're a small entity. I think when you're a small entity, it's less than 2,000, but that also includes the first five claims. So it will also depend on how many claims you have. Like if, for example, you have 50 claims, then you will have to pay for the additional claims in excess of five. For utility models, it's cheaper. So if you're a small or a medium entity, small entity, that's less than 2,000. But if you're a big entity, that's times two because we give 50% discount. And then for utility models, it's much less than an invention. And then at the time when your application gets published, then you will have to start paying for what we call the annuity fees. You can visit the website of IPO Field. There's a schedule of fees that you can look at.
That
Yes, the fees
that
are also there.
already includes the uh, bale walang hindi included yung assuming you're coming from
Those are
private sector. Yeah.
for private. Yeah, yeah. It's not really public and private. It's small entities, referring to entities whose capitalization are 100 million and below.
Yeah. So
Okay.
almost
So if your capitalization is higher than above 100 million, then you are considered as a big entity. So that would be for filing fee, that's around 4,000 plus excess claims higher than 5.
so yung claims ho na yon kasama na yun sa lawyer's fee doon.
No, we are talking about the fees that IPO Phil will charge. The lawyer's fees,
Yeah, yeah.
you will
Yeah.
have to transact
So
with the lawyer.
do you have an idea, including the lawyer's fees? Because that really is the hidden
You
cost.
know,
Rough
yeah,
idea.
it's on a case to case basis,
Yeah.
because as lawyers would
Mm.
peg our fees depending on several factors. One, how big is the capacity to pay of the client. We will charge, for example, higher fees for pharmaceutical companies compared to individual filers. So there are a lot of factors that we consider too. The kind of application that is involved. If it's a biotech application, then that would require a lot of complex analysis of the application compared to, for example, a simple application for a herbal medicine. So there's a lot of factors that lawyers will consider when they fix the fees that they will charge.
So last question. So for relatively simple products like a food supplement,
I did not also mention the reputation of the lawyer that you are going to get. If you are going to get a lawyer who is affiliated with the big law office, um, that would of course ask for a higher professional fee compared to a regular patent agent, for example. So I cannot give you um, a figure, a ballpark figure, because it really depends on a lot of factors that I have mentioned.
thank you.
We can also discuss the cost for IP application only for the Philippines as compared when you apply for PCT for the different countries. Maybe they would.
The information actually is on the website, but sometimes your website is difficult to download. The forms, the process, if it is small, the fees are also there. By the way, I mentioned about for this is for Mr. Cruz for private, no, private companies, but for us in the public sector, the Republic Act 155 states a 40-60 sharing, 40 to the creator, and 60 to the institution. So it is given to you in a way um, the institution will do the patent drafting and patent application. So, and we with the ITSU, with the Innovation Technology Service Office that the IPOFIL is promoting among public RDIs, Research Development Institute, and universities, um, they help, no? They help. Minsan libre, no? Libre yung first number of patent application nyo. However, make sure what you are going to apply for intellectual property will earn. Baka naman kung ano-ano lang yan. Baka lang kung kasi I've visited a lot of universities. May accreditation kasi ang CHED, the number of utility model that you can file. Eh yung utility model, basket 3. Parang, okay. So, make sure that it is quality also, not just another Kaya nga utility model is petty patent lack the inventive act. So make sure that nagbabayad tayo kasi 1.5 or 1.8 ngayon is the first filing. Meron pa yung substantive evaluation, meron pa yung mga process, additional, more or less about 30 to 40 kung small entity ka lang throughout the 48 months or something. So make sure that you will earn. Hindi lang basta accreditation ng level 1, level 2 ng CHED. No? Kasi may ano yan mga ID, Industrial Design, tsaka patent. Eh hindi kaya yung patent, mas mahigpit. Kaya na lang ang ginagawa ng mga HEIs para makapag-accredit sa CHED.
All right.
Just to, okay, for filing fee for invention, small entity is 2,000, so I was right, and the big entity is 4,320. For each claim in excess of 5, for small entity that's 180 pesos, for big entity that's 360. And then you will have to pay for substantive examination. And that would be 2,010 pesos for small and 4,200 for big entity. And then you have the annuity fees. And then there's a different schedule every year. But for the 5th year, 1,550 for small and then 3,240 for big. I just wanted to add to what Dr. Reyes said, no? We are working, okay, when the IP code was being drafted, the policy bias then was to encourage innovation and Philippine invention. That's why utility model protection period was only 7 years because we wanted to incentivize inventions. So, we had parang the legislative intent was not to make sure not to give a protection period which is comparable to patent, because we wanted to really push for Philippine innovation. But that was when the IP code was drafted, and several decades after, we still see that we have a very low filing for invention. So we're working with the OST and institutions like UP to push for invention. Sometimes, and in practice, and this is very sad because I see it, because I'm the one signing for the order. It's filed as an invention, and then if we issue the office action, and then we would ask for for the applicant to substantiate the inventive step. That's where the gap is. Nagkakaproblema na pag na-action na namin on inventive step, the reply would be to convert the invention into a utility model kasi hindi lulusot sa inventive step. And it's sad because sayang yung invention filing. But one of the interventions that we are doing now is what we call the PCT roving seminar, which we are on our 3rd or 4th actually. We go to the universities and we teach the researchers or the staff there to draft the claims to comply with the inventive step requirement. So at the outset pa lang, we already assist the researchers or the inventors to draft the claims such that it's going to be appreciated to have been compliant with the inventive step requirement.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for all those information. Since it's already 15 minutes after 12, we can no longer entertain the questions from the floor, but you may write your questions on a sheet of paper, put your email address, and then we will just collect it, and then we will just answer that through email. Okay? So, I would like to invite a request Dr. Jane T. Reyes, together with our Secretary to the Faculty, Assistant Professor Rita C. Ramos, to award the certificate and token of appreciation to our speakers and discussant. University of the Philippines, Open University, the National Academy of Science and Technology, and the Philippine Council for Industry, Energy and Emerging Technology Research and Development present this certificate of appreciation to Marco Nemesio E. Montaño as plenary speaker during the Colloquium on Innovations and Trends in R&D Management held on 14 to 15 November 2018 at UPOU Los Baños. Given this 15th day of November 2018, signed, Jane C. Reyes, Program Chair, DRDM, and Project Leader, MRNDM Project, and Primo G. Garcia, Dean of FMDS. And this is for Director Lolibeth R. Medrano. And for Dr. Jane C. Reyes. And to Dr. Susan T. Bakud as our discussant. We would also like to invite our co-sponsor, the NAST representative, for supporting the development of partnerships in the STEI ecosystem project. And for Dr. Lourdes J. Cruz, the project leader. Thank you very much to our discussants, speakers, and co-sponsor. And to formally close this event, again, Dr. Jane C. Reyes, the DRDM Program Chair and the MRDM Project Leader.
In behalf of Dr. Primo Garcia, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Management Development Studies, we would like to extend our gratitude to our partners here in conducting the colloquium on innovations in R&D management, particularly the National Academy of Science and Technology through the project of National Scientist Lourdes Cruz, to the Philippine Council for Industry, Energy, and Emerging Technologies Research and Development with the MRNDM project, as well as to the UP Open University families who are in full support to this colloquium. And we will not forget to thank all the participants in the colloquium, our distinguished resource persons who have graciously shared their experience and knowledge in in a 1.5 day, almost 2 days learning event. And thank you for participants face-to-face and online for being with us and staying with us. And with that, please wait for the offering of the Masters in R&D Management. Let's give ourselves a big, big hand.
Thank you very much, Doc Jane, and that concludes our two-day activity. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending the colloquium on innovations and trends in R&D management. We hope to see you again in our future R&D management event.